What's going on, people? We are Tottenham TV, back here for another Tottenham update and a nice long beefy update for you guys today. And up first is David Raya, as Fabrizio Romano says that David Raya has accepted all the details of Tottenham's contract proposal. Personal terms are agreed, as reported on Sunday. Conversations ongoing between the clubs to reduce the 40 million asking price. Spurs are on it. Chelsea didn't meet his agents 2 weeks ago, despite reports.
Yeah, so every day
Only
we're getting more and more rare reports, which is exciting because we've needed to keep it for so long, and I'm very excited about the potential of David Raya being our new number one. It would be a brilliant start to the window. I think the sooner the better. Yeah,
absolutely. Just get him in, man. Just get the deal done. Another deal which Spurs are working on is James Maddison. Graham Bailey saying that Tottenham and not Newcastle are now favourites to sign Leicester City's James Maddison. Maddison likes Spurs' new boss Ange Postecoglou and wants to play under the Australian's guidance. He says, most people are backing him to join Newcastle, but my current information goes slightly against that. I'm told the agents doing the deal are pretty close with Spurs, and that is one of the few reasons Tottenham might have the edge here.
So maybe it's kind of agents playing both sides, trying to get the best deal, potentially. Sounds like it, because we keep hearing different things every day. Newcastle front runners, Tottenham are front runners. I think it's just about getting probably the most money for his client, I'd assume.
Yeah, I imagine that. I mean, I think that when you're looking at the two sporting projects, obviously Newcastle are ahead at the moment, but Spurs do have kind of, you know, the London thing, the facilities, better facilities and stuff like that. So it just depends what James Maddison wants. I think that when you look at the two clubs, they probably can offer a similar financial package, to be fair.
Yeah, because I think Newcastle, as much as they have lots of money, apparently they're not going to be like, you know, how Chelsea were, or City just splashing loads of money, giving big wages. They're going to do things sensibly. And in that sense, they're not going to just blow everyone out the water with wages, maybe like Chelsea were doing. So I do think it's going to be a bit more even on that front.
Yeah, agreed. We'll have to see how this one plays out. Talking about if we miss out on James Maddison, Eberechi Eze, Fijajes Football, saying that Tottenham are expected to step up their interest in Crystal Palace midfielder Eberechi Eze should they fail to land top target James Maddison.
And I would be massively in favour of this, even if, I mean, he could play with Maddison technically, but I can't see us splashing big money on two midfielders. I don't even think it's a case of him being worse than Maddison necessarily. I think maybe Maddison's a bit ahead of him right now, but he's 3 years younger. He's got certain attributes which are better than Maddison. He's quicker, he's better at dribbling. He also got 15 goal contributions last season. He's come back from his injury. He had a really bad injury, it ruled him out for a year since he's been at Crystal Palace. Has come back, has been firing, has moved into a more central role after playing out on the wing when he first joined Palace as well. So he's developed his game. Just got his first England call up as well recently. I think he's a proper star in the making. But the thing is, I think Palace are going to be very reluctant to lose him. I think they're well within their right to tell us to pay over budget, basically, in my opinion, because Zaha's kind of leaving. He hasn't officially left, but his contract's running up this summer, so he looks like he's leaving. If he does go, then I don't see how good the money is for them. They're probably better off keeping Eze, or unless we pay way over the price.
Yeah, it's an interesting one with Eze because he's got 2 years left on his contract. So you do assume that the biggest fee that they can get will probably be this summer, because his fee will just go down and down if he doesn't sign a contract and wants to move on to bigger and better things.
Well, not necessarily. If let's say he smashes it let's say they tell us to go away this summer. They say, look, we either you pay us like 70 million or you're not getting him. And then he has an amazing season. You can still get 50 million next season.
Yeah, you will still get 50 million, but clubs and he will know that in a year's time, at next summer, he'll be able to go for free. So Palace, if he's refusing to sign that contract, might take a smaller fee next summer.
Yeah, next summer, yeah. If I'm saying this summer, I don't see them taking a smaller fee.
That's what I'm saying. I said this summer is probably the height of his value if he doesn't sign that contract.
Correct, which is why I don't see us getting him for a reasonable fee. We're going to have to pay over the odds this summer.
I think between like 50, 60 million would get him. I think that would be a bit silly to reject that, 50, 60 million.
I don't know, would they?
Yeah, I think they would, because I don't think they get that next summer.
But they're not. Maybe they're not in the business of just making money. You know, they're held out on Zaha for a very long time, always sticking to their price. Who maybe Eze can be convinced to sign a contract. There's no reason why not. He's very happy, it seems, at Crystal Palace right now. So maybe he could sign it if he has a really good season. They could give him maybe Zaha, like what the money Zaha was on, 100 grand a week to convince him to stay, and maybe he'd be convinced to sign. So I honestly, if Zaha leaves, and also you've got to remember, Premier League teams have lots of money now. They're not as cash strapped as they were, 5-10 years ago. It's a different situation now. So I see them saying 70 million or go away. I can see that situation happening.
Yeah, look, there's a potential for it, but I genuinely believe with his contract running down, they'll have a frank conversation with him. And if he's open to signing a contract in the next year or so, then potentially, he'll go for massive, massive money. But if he's refusing to sign a contract and wants to go on to bigger and better things, then the Palace might have their hands tied behind their back and they're going to need to sell at some point. So let's talk about...
I'd love him.
Yeah, I think he's a brilliant player. And to be honest, I've been watching him since his QPR days, and I wanted him when he left QPR and joined Crystal Palace at that point, and I most definitely want him now. His development has gone up a notch, that's for sure. Jadon Sancho up next. Gary Jacob from Time saying that Tottenham have registered an interest in Jadon Sancho. We spoke about this earlier on today in the tier list. I mean, I'm just not convinced with the money he's going to want to command for his wages.
Yeah, they signed him for 75 million and made him one of their highest paid players at 350 grand a week. And that was 2 years ago. It's really not worked out for him ever since he signed for them, and he's been in and out of the team. He's found it really hard to get form. Albeit last season as well, he had a very peculiar situation where he just seemed to take 3 months off. I'm not really sure what the reason is. I mean, Ten Hag was quite sketchy about it, whether it was a mental health issue or because it didn't seem to be an injury. So it was very strange what happened there. But he did come back, to be fair, and I thought he ended the season fairly well. I think he's clearly a player full of talent. There's a reason why he was one of the most sought-after wingers in Europe a couple of years ago. United tried to sign for 90 million and ended up signing with 75 a year later. I think he's top quality. I really do. And I know he's been out of form and he's been maybe low on confidence, but the guy is still 23. He's still very young. He's got loads of time on his side. I think a winger, especially one who can play on the left or the right, would be massively valuable to Tottenham. But yeah, there's a big question mark on that wage packet, which is for me the biggest stumbling block. How do we overcome that? He has to basically be really willing to leave United and be willing to take a wage cut with heavily bonus incentivized contract. That's the only way this deal could get done, because there's no chance we give him anywhere near 350 a week. It's not happening. So it depends on Sancho. Is he that desperate to leave United and take a wage cut to come to Tottenham? I mean, if I was Sancho, I'm looking at the situation, he'd probably hedge his bets and stay at United in that case.
I don't see why he wouldn't, to be honest. Why take a wage cut and join Tottenham when you can fight for your place at Man U? And if you've got that talent and if you back yourself with the talent, he'll make a name for himself at Man United like he should have done last year.
Unless Ten Hag really doesn't fancy him for one reason or other and he's desperate to get out. If he is desperate to get out, do you see another club putting big money and willing to pay 350 a week? So then he would have to take a wage cut if he's forced out. So that's a different situation. I don't think they will come to that though.
I don't think so. I think he's done himself quite well since returning back into the team. Every time he's come on, every time he's played, he seems to have played well, to be honest. And his goal contributions ain't even that bad this year. So, yeah. I mean, I think he's going to end up fighting for his place at Man United and probably doing a good job of that next season. Next up, let's talk about Roger Ibanez of Roma. Football Italia saying that there is a Premier League club advancing in its negotiations for Roma central defender Roger Ibanez, and it is believed to be Tottenham Hotspur. Spurs are known to have held a long-term interest in the player. Yeah, and he's a really good centre-back, to be fair. I thought in the Europa's both European runs, I thought he was central to both of them. I think he's a really good, He's a bit of a no-nonsense defender, really good with blocks and clearances and aerially in the box as well. He's very strong. He's a really strong defender, good on the ball as well. But I don't know if partnering him with Romero is the smartest idea. If the idea is to get him in as competition for Romero and get a left-sided centre-back, then I'm not mad at it. But I think pairing him with Romero is just a bit of a recipe for disaster, albeit
maybe Ange will like the chaos because he likes a bit of chaos in his play in terms of
it's a bit too
off
much,
the ball.
though.
Maybe it's a bit too much, yeah.
I think it is a bit too much. You're going to have like two of the most aggressive defenders in European football, pretty much. Two of the defenders that pick up the most yellow cards in European football as well, both being paired together. I just don't see it happening. And in terms of him coming to play competition to Romero, I just don't see him like leaving a starting sort of Roma week in, week out in Europa League football next year to come to Tottenham just as a squad player kind of thing.
Yeah, neither do I. I think he's good enough to be a starter.
Yeah, so I don't know about this Roger Ibanez situation, but we'll have to see how
He's
one plays out. He is a good player. I'm not denying he's a good player, but I just don't know if he fits exactly what we need right now. Next up, let's talk about some potential outgoings, and first up is Pierre-Emile Hojbjerg. Tom Barkley says that Hojbjerg's future at Tottenham looks uncertain. It is understood that whether Hojbjerg has 2 years left in his contract will still be with the club come the end of the summer transfer window.
Yeah, and I just think a good offer, if we can get some decent money for him, I would much rather sell him and invest in a more technical player, a more player that can fit Ange's system a bit better than Hojbjerg. I actually think Hojbjerg could do well in how we want to play next season. I think he's better on the ball than a lot of people give him credit for, but he's still not great on the ball. He's only good. He's not like amazing. And I think I would rather invest in a player who has a higher ceiling and less limited than someone like Hojbjerg, albeit, again, I do think as a squad player, he can do a good job. And I don't think he's a terrible player like a lot of people do, but I do think it's worth cashing in on him if we're able to.
Absolutely, I completely agree. I think I've said it many a time. I think the one midfielder in the squad right now who I think is upgradable, which is easily upgradable, is Pierre-Emile Hojbjerg. I think he's a player that you can get at least like between 30 and 40 million for as well. And I think if an offer comes on 30, 35 million, I would take it, and I would kind of look at different targets in that area. We can get players for less than that, probably that are better than Hojbjerg and probably have better attributes that can suit the squad and better going forward and stuff like that. So I would potentially like to see Hojbjerg moved on now. I wouldn't like to see him get that new contract and be even longer at Spurs. With 2 years left in his deal, now's the time to sell him, to be honest.
I agree. But if he is part of the team next season, I'm not going to be mad at that either.
Yeah. Let's talk about Dejan Kulicevski now. This is an interesting update from Graham Bailey in 90min. They say Dejan Kulicevski may have to win over Postecoglou if his loan move from Juventus is made permanent. The ex-Celtic boss is not too convinced by the Swede at the moment. Spurs have just over 2 weeks to trigger their option to buy Kulicevski outright from Juventus for £26 million. His optional clause would have been an obligation if the club would have qualified for the Champions League this season. So what do you reckon those reservations are from Ange?
Maybe it's because he likes his wingers to be a lot further out wide, and maybe Kulicevski is a bit more at home in the central areas, unless he wants to convert Kulicevski into a midfielder, but then you might as well buy a midfielder if you're going to spend 26 million and not a winger. I guess you could argue those kind of things. I just think Kulicevski's got bags of ability, and I think he can work out wide, he can work centrally. It's a player you're better off keeping around, in my opinion, for that kind of value. I don't think you're finding a 22-year-old with his ability for 26 million in this market right now. So I don't see how in 2 weeks he can prove Ange wrong if this article is reliable. I don't see what he can do in the next 2 weeks to convince Ange otherwise if he's not convinced now already, which is a bit worrying if the clause is up in 2 weeks' time. But I don't know. I'm hoping it's just talk, but it is. Look, the fact of the matter is we haven't triggered it. Yeah. And there must be a reason why. Why have we not triggered it yet? Yeah,
it's very confusing, to be honest, because like after the first 6 months, like when he was at Spurs, he was like proper one of the best wingers in the Premier League at that point. He has had a disappointing season this year, fair enough, due to injuries and everything like that. But I think he'll be very valuable for Ange Postecoglou. Out wide, centrally, he's very versatile. I think get the job done, because even if you don't want him as a winger, I really think he can suit that number 10 role. He's got bags and bags of supreme ability. He's a good chance creation machine at times when you've got him playing well. So just get the job done, man. He's a good player. Let's talk about Eric Dyer now. The same publication, 90 Min and Graham Bailey, saying that Tottenham will consider selling Eric Dyer this summer. England international has been in talks over a contract extension, but those negotiations have stalled. The 29-year-old's performances dipped during the 22-23 season, battling with injury, while he revealed plans to leave Spurs and play abroad again back in October.
Really? To play abroad?
Apparently so.
Oh, that'd be good. If we
That would be good, wouldn't it?
Yeah, look, we all know that Dyer hasn't. We know we're not fans of Eric Dyer. He's been off form for a while. He had a good bit of form when Conte first joined. That's been his only bit of good form for a while now. I think he's not going to be suited to how Postecoglou wants to play with a high defensive line and a lot of space to cover. For one, I think it makes sense for us to move on and sell him, albeit you could argue you're losing a player in the squad who's been there a long time and he has leadership abilities and he's one of the players all the players know well. But at the end of the day, when you're not good enough, that's the most important thing, and he just hasn't been good enough for a long time now. So for me, have to move him on. Get
the leadership team gone. Hojbjerg out, Dyer out. Happy days, in my opinion. Let's talk about Cuti Romero. Gaston Edul came up with, I don't know why he's come up with this, but some news was doing the Twitter rounds on the Spurs Twitter yesterday saying Tottenham central defender Cuti Romero will stay at Spurs. So nice to know.
Well, there were rumours, isn't he, that he's not happy and he's going to try and force himself out. So I'm guessing it's in response to that. But I was never in doubt that he was going to be here next season. But it's good to get it confirmed from a decent source.
Yeah. Next up, let's talk about Dele Alli now. Paul Joyce from The Times says that Sean Dyche reckons Dele Alli still wishes to push himself. Dyche has held talks with Dele, who is set to return to Finch Farm this pre-season. And here's the point that relates to Spurs. If Dele plays 7 more games for Everton, they will owe Spurs £10 million.
Wow, so get him playing.
Yeah, 7 more games, that's all it takes. 7 more games.
Well, we know there's add-ons that can lead up to 40 million. I don't know what the add-ons are, though, but obviously...
If Everton win the Champions League and stuff like that.
But the first one's obviously appearances. I think the other ones are like 10 goals and stuff like that. So he has to do well. Look, Dele's in the abyss right now. His career has completely gone down the drain. He's getting subbed off in the first half of Besiktas. He can't even get in their team right now. I don't know what he needs, because he's had every single different type of manager and different arms around the shoulders, and nothing has seemed to work over the last few years. He's changed environments, gone to a less competitive league, and still he's struggling. So is Sean Dyche the guy to bring him back to his best? We'll have to wait. I mean, I doubt it, but you have to wait and see. The guy is still 26, 27 years of age. So, I mean, if he wants to, it's still there for him, Premier League football, to get back to his best. But it's just been so long. When it's been like pretty much half a decade where he's just been going nowhere, it's hard to believe he'll ever return.
Yeah, it's such a big shame, because I was such a massive fan. I love that guy, Dele Alli. It's just such a shame, and to see how his career has gone, it really is.
Do you see Dyche bringing him back into the fold, or do you think they'll just release him on a free?
Bloody well hope so. It's going to cost them more to keep him than to release him on a free.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the honest truth of it. So I think Dyche,
what do you do?
If I'm Dyche, I'll probably just get rid of him now, to be honest, because how many times can managers try and get this guy on side, get this guy's mentality right? I mean, he's been through so many different managers and so many different clubs now, Spurs, Everton and Besiktas, where in Besiktas, Everton sold Cenk Tosun to them, right, who couldn't make it in the Premier League, was nowhere near good enough for the Premier League, and he's like smashing in goals there for fun in the Turkish league. And then you've got Dele Alli, who had a 18-goal season for Tottenham when he was like 20, 21, whatever it was, and he's getting subbed up at before half-time. So I think his career's done, to be honest. I can't see a way back unless he drops down the leagues or something.
Yeah, it's difficult to see a path back for him at this point.
Yeah. Let's talk about these quotes from Antonio Conte. He's been speaking about his experience at Spurs, and the quote is, "The last experience, like them all really, had some things that were positive and some less so. The experience was wonderful. We did the maximum possible and gave all we had. When I arrived, the team was in 8th or 9th place, yet we qualified for the Champions League. Then this season, the side in 4th position, I left because I left and parted ways with Tottenham. Some had decided to settle for less."
I'm not sure it's difficult to understand what he's trying to say, because is he saying the hierarchy were happy with not getting top four? Is he saying he wanted to go for the title and they only wanted top four, so he left? If that was the case, why didn't he leave earlier? It's a bit confusing, but
I'm not sure he's talking about the hierarchy here, to be honest. I know it's the easy conclusion to make, talking about the hierarchy, but I think he's talking about players here.
Or that players settled for less.
I think so, because you saw how in his first season they were proper fighting for the badge, a good cohesive unit, and that was completely lost by the time he had left Spurs. And I think he's talking about players downing tools and players kind of not buying into his methods anymore.
Yeah, it makes sense, to be fair, and that was the main complaint when he had his big storm off at the Southampton game. It was more directed at the players than it was about hierarchy, albeit he did mention them. So that's probably a good fair conclusion to make. And we all know that there's been players in this squad who haven't been pushing themselves. Other players have alluded to it, not just Conte. There's people like Kane and Hojbjerg and other people who've just alluded to the fact that there are some players in this squad who don't have that mentality to be the best they can be and try be winners. They're happy to settle for fifth place or whatever. So that makes complete sense, and hopefully that this refresh can help get rid of that mentality. Yeah,
not only Conte was talking, but also Christian Stellini, and he said it was a difficult season. I think it was a season I'd never experienced because it was crowned with 1,000 problems and dramatic situation. Ventroni's death was devastating for us, and with the World Cup in between, everything was genuinely difficult. Mr. Conte was also ill, so it was very complicated. It's a year that will help everyone for the future, and maybe it's a year that maybe convinced Spurs and the hierarchy to do this big rebuild if it does happen.
Yeah, I hope so. But because it's been in the offing for a while now, and it's kind of been delayed every time we appoint a manager, that kind of for the short term to save us money. But I think it's been in the offing for a long time, and you forget like how many problems we've had last season, which contributed to inconsistent performances and inconsistent results and a lot of problems. And it wasn't just players not giving their all, or the hierarchy not giving Conte money, or Conte's tactics. There was all these other things, like personal things, which you can't legislate for, and that culminated in the season that we did have. But I think hopefully out of that comes a time now where we get back to our values.
Absolutely. And let's finish off the update with some quotes from HeungMin Son. He was speaking to the Korean media today, and he says, "I hesitate in telling this publicly, but I actually struggled significantly during the season. I played 8 to 9 months while enduring pain, but I ended up having to take the surgery now." Obviously, he's having a hernia surgery, or he had it 2 weeks ago. Then he goes on to say, "When I'd pass or turn, everything I do moves around my core muscles, and because it was that pain that hurt, I could only perform at 60% of what I know I'm capable of." And this makes sense, doesn't it? It really does make sense, because you saw that Sonny wasn't moving and his movement wasn't the same as what it has been in previous years. And all these people doubting Sonny and going mad at Sonny, I think after he's had this surgery now, I think we can expect a much better Sonny for next season.
Yeah, I hope so. This is something we spoke about last update when Son said, the news came out that someone's having a hernia injury. We're wondering how long has it been troubling him for, because obviously his form has been bad. And I said, I had a hernia last year, and I can definitely say I'd be very surprised if he was playing with it for a while without it affecting him. And now he's saying he's had it for 8-9 months. And it's so stupid, though. Why did they not get this sorted sooner? Because a hernia can take 6 weeks to 2 months to heal, or maybe they didn't want him to miss the games. But aren't you better? Look, we signed a player for 60 million. We had Danjuma out on loan, who wasn't getting a minute. We had players there that could fill in for the short term if Son was going to need the time to recover. Why not just put your faith in those players rather than keep Son on the pitch, who is 60% fit? A lot of games he was stinking the place out. He's clearly not at 100%. He's now saying it himself. I mean, whose call was that to allow that situation to go on? Was it Son himself saying, "No, I'm good, I'm going to carry on"? Was it Conte saying, "No, we need you"? I mean, was it the medical team saying, "No, you can still play"? Like, all these different things have to be called into question, because how the situation was allowed to continue is, for 9 months, he's saying, is quite frankly disgraceful.
Yeah, and if he would have sorted out this surgery 9 months ago, we would have had him back 8 months ago. Would have had him fit and firing. Like, if you miss a month of football and you literally sign a player for 60 million for this exact situation, It makes no sense for everyone involved to let this happen. Sonny shouldn't be putting himself in that situation. Conte, the manager, shouldn't be putting Sonny in that situation. The medical team, first and foremost, should be taking care of the player welfare before anything else.
You know, Sonny, like he played with a broken arm, didn't he? Like he's always going to put himself. And he'll sacrifice himself for the team. He's that kind of person. But at the end of the day, him doing that was hurting the team if he's only 60% fit. So I think the whole situation is daft and should have been sorted out way sooner. Yeah. But thankfully, it is sorted out. Let's see. Hopefully, there's no damage to him, and hopefully, he comes back like a refreshed player. Yeah, I'm backing Sonny to have a big season next year after those quotes have come out. But everything kind of makes sense after hearing those, to be honest. But that is your Tottenham update for today. Let me know in the comment section below your thoughts regarding any of the news stories we've brought to you today. Like, subscribe and comment, and as always, come on you Spurs.